she shouted me out. That was so sweet of her. I hope that you enjoy the videos that I'm making here. And the third thing is that it is June. June is Pride Month in the United States, and I am going to reprise my video series of recommendations for each letter in LGBTQIA2S. Unlike last year where I did 2 videos a week, I just don't have the time or the energy for that with my current work schedule. So I am going to release 1 video each week, and we're going to stretch this in through July. Yeah. So I will be starting with lesbian again. I really, truly feel like putting 2S at the beginning of that alphabet soup is the right thing to do. However, books with 2-spirit representation are the hardest to find, and heaven forbid that I read them in advance, you know? So once again, I need the time to find books with 2-spirit characters. So if you have any recommendations or you want me to read any in particular, let me know in the comments. Sorry, my dog is apparently angry at her blanket for not being wrinkled enough, I'm gonna guess. Yeah, she's throwing a major fit on my bed over there. You can probably hear the fabric sounds. She got a bath this morning, so she is not very happy with me right now. Baths are just the worst, you know? At least according to her. We might as well be pouring acid on her. Just so dramatic. Alrighty, without further ado, let's get into what I read in the month of May. If you've been here for any amount of time, then you've heard me talk about the Feminist Book Club. I have a non-fiction subscription with them. However, about halfway through 2023, I stopped reading the books because I got Unlikable Female Characters by Anna Bubitskaya, and I just didn't think that this was going to be interesting. And they do have options to skip your subscription for the month, or to swap it out for a different book. And in the past, some of the books that I've thought about swapping out have ended up becoming favorite books for me. They used to do a mix of fiction and non-fiction, and We Ride Upon Sticks was one of the Feminist Book Club picks that I would absolutely never have picked up on my own because it's about field hockey. And I ended up loving this book. So I do try to not skip or swap unless I really, really know that I'm never going to pick it up. And Unlikable Female Characters sounded interesting. It's the women pop culture wants you to hate. So it's an analysis of TV and movie characters, and Anna Bogutskaya breaks them down into different character types. So we have, let's see if there's a... Okay, so she breaks them down into the bitch, the mean girl, the angry woman, the slut, the train wreck, the crazy woman, the psycho, the shrew, and the weirdo. I think it's an interesting way of grouping characters. I thought that her analysis was insightful. The reason that I didn't think that I would enjoy the book is that I don't watch a lot of TV or movies. So of the 50 or 60 movies that she mentions violence in this book, I had seen 9 of them. So a lot of it just felt like, because I didn't know the character and was unfamiliar with the source material, it didn't grab my attention. And I knew that that was going to happen when I got the book, because I am well aware of the fact that my pop culture knowledge is significantly subpar. So I thought this was a good book, and I was the wrong audience for it, essentially. And that kind of stopped me from reading the books that Feminist Book Club was sending me, because I kind of got stuck on the, like, read them in order. And I finally gave myself permission to just read them in whatever order. So the curse is broken. I only have one more Feminist Book Club pick from last year that I still need to read, and I am caught up with this year's books. So, hooray! The next, I'm going to review all 3 in one go. So We Do This Till We Free Us by Mariam Kabe. We have Abolition Feminism Now by Angela Davis, Gina Dent, Erica Miners, and Beth Ritchie. And then we also have Let This Radicalize You by Kelly Hayes and Mariam Kaba. So these two were Feminist Book Club picks. This one was from 2023. This one I think was actually from 2022. And Abolition Feminism Now is a book that I won from the Feminist Book Club. All 3 of them are about abolition and abolition feminism. So if you're unfamiliar, abolition is the idea that we need to abolish the prison-industrial complex, that we don't have to work from a carceral, punitive point of view when handling criminals. The movement is especially focused on not continuing to punish formerly incarcerated people, and that's the part that I really am most focused on personally. I think it's ridiculous that, we say X crime gets you so many numbers of years in prison, but then once they're out of prison, we continue to punish them through having the checkbox on job applications and housing applications asking if they're formerly incarcerated, with not allowing them to vote. Like, how are you going to reintegrate yourself into the community if you can't even vote? I could go off. So, abolition feminism is something that I absolutely believe in and support. I do think that we need to be coming up with a better way. Not over-policing, not throwing people into jail myself back into the theme of the witch hunts. It just didn't, it wasn't quite there for me. It was interesting coming from a US-centric feminist viewpoint. I do read. If you have a subscription to something called the Feminist Book Club, obviously you're into feminist literature. But I do also have a BA in Gender and Race Studies, so this is something that I think about a lot, and I have spent a lot of time reading. Pretty familiar with the big players and the names, so getting something that is translated from French was fun because it was a lot of feminist works that I was unfamiliar with, and that doesn't happen very often. The downside to it having been translated from French is that there are some very clunky sentences, and there are some words that just don't have English equivalents, so you end up with like an entire sentence trying to explain what this word means. So yeah, the translation itself I don't think was particularly good, although it's also totally possible that the original French just is a little bit clunky. I don't know, because I don't speak French and I definitely don't read French. But yeah, In Defense of Witches. And that was the point at which I was like, okay, let's read a little bit of fiction, because did a lot of nonfiction the first week of May. So the next thing that I read, this was a reread, Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. Mira Grant is the pen name for Seanan McGuire when she is writing horror and science fiction. And this book is definitely both. So, the premise is there is this entertainment company. They spend, like, what they focus on is fake documentaries about cryptids. So, mermaids, Bigfoot, chupacabra, stuff like that. So they send this cruise ship out to the Marianas Trench, where they are going to make a fake mermaid documentary. And then all contact with the ship is lost. And 3 weeks later, it's found drifting with no crew, and there is video footage of mermaids killing everyone on board. So this book takes place several years later. Our main character is the younger sister of someone who died on that first ship, and she has grown up to be an oceanographer because she is determined to find the thing that killed her sister. And so when the entertainment company is ready to send another ship out and try and clear their name from this controversy, I can't remember the main character's name. I am so bad with names. It is ridiculous. Tori. The main character's name is Tori. Tori and her research partner are on this vessel. We also have several other scientists whose point of view that we get. And they go out to the Marianas Trench and they start looking. This book is so scary. Literally 5 pages from the end was when I finally thought, okay, whoever's still alive at this point is probably going to be alive on the last page. This is action-packed, full of compelling characters, and part of what Mira Grant does really well in this book is humanize even the unlikable characters and then kill them off. their story and then dead. Yeah, no one is safe. This book also has deaf representation, autistic representation, lesbian and bisexual representation. So, that's fun. I really, really enjoyed this book, obviously, since I reread it, and I don't think I'm going to stop it just 2 times through. Really, what I should do is read more of Mira Grant's, because this really, really worked for me. But Shannon McGuire works for me in general. She's just very prolific. When I saw her at a panel at Comic-Con, she said the last time that they counted, she had like more than 90 books that she had written. So probably never going to be able to catch up, because I'm pretty sure she writes them faster than I read. But I enjoy them. Okay, the next book that I read was How to Be a Movie Star by TJ Klune. This is also a reread. And again, if you've watched any previous videos from me, then you know that I am obsessed with this duology. The first book is How to Be a Normal Person, the second is How to Be a Movie Star. They are male-male ace relationships. They are both romances. And the characters are just so sweet. This book focuses on Josiah, and Josiah is a pothead. Definitely neurodivergent, and he's going to be a movie star. Also, he's, bless his heart, not the brightest bulb, but so, so, so sweet. I just want to get stoned and cuddle with him and watch a bad movie. I think it would be a fantastic day. So he is demisexual. He wins tickets to what he thinks is a poetry slam because he wasn't really listening well enough. And at the not a poetry slam, ends up meeting Cubert. Cubert is gay, not ace, and has severe depression and anxiety issues. Josiah desperately wants to be friends with Cubert. Cubert clearly is attracted to Josiah, but their meet cute goes terribly wrong. Thankfully, they get a second chance, and it is so sweet and so heartwarming. This is a book that I read when I just need an injection of pure happiness. So good. Alright, the next one that I read was Jesus and John Wayne. Who was that by? By Kristen Cobbs? I have no idea. Kristen studies standpoint. So if that's something that is interesting to you, I would highly recommend it. I might get it out from the library and read it again so that I can extract more of the information from it. Let's see. Okay, the next thing that I read was Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. They wrote The Echo Wife, and that was one of my favorite books last year. So I was pretty excited to read this one, which is one of their older books. So Magic for Liars is about, it's from the point of view of a private investigator. And she mostly, is tailing cheating spouses and stuff like that. But she gets an offer to investigate what looks like a murder. So the backstory is that our main character is a twin, and her sister is magical. Went to a special high school for magic kids, and now is a teacher at that same school. So the headmistress of the school contacts our private investigator because there has been a death at the school, and the headmistress is certain that it was not an accident, despite the fact that the magical police did determine that it was an accident. So this is a book about, falling apart, trying on new personalities, reconnecting with semi-estranged family, while trying to find out what happened to this maybe murdered woman. I picked this up predominantly because I'm doing a couple of reading challenges, and the first is the Extreme Reader Challenge through my local library, which had the prompt of Dark Academia. The second is the Feminist Book Club Passport, and that one had a prompt of Away at Boarding School. So I kind of feel like this might have been cheating a little bit for both, because our main character is not a student, but it does take place at a boarding school, and investigating a murder is definitely dark. So I'm calling it for those. Alright, next we are back into Feminist Book Club books. This shiny book here is From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty. So Caitlin Doughty is the author of Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. She is a mortician. Is that what they call them? Yes, mortician. So this is not her first book about death, but I haven't read the other one. This is interesting in that she is observing death rites from around the world and talking about how some cultures can be very comfortable with death, and it's very different from the way that we do things in the United States. She also talks about death tourism, and that is the part in this book that made me kind of uncomfortable, because she is sort of deriding death tourism, scoffing at these tourists around her because it is impinging on these sacred ceremonies. However, I don't see how she's not also a tourist in these situations. Like, yes, she is a mortician, but she is also an outsider watching these death rites. So that felt mildly hypocritical. Not enough for me to, put the book down, but enough to make me sort of think, is a very easy read. And it is super interesting. I just would have liked a little bit more of an acknowledgement of, she's trying to make it seem like she's different and better than these other people, but is she really? Alright, next we're going to do another chunk. I got a gift card bonus at work, so I bought a bunch of Naruto. I am reading the omnibus versions because it's way the heck cheaper that way. You can get a 3-in-1 for like the same price as just a single volume. So I read 4, 5, 6. Which is there. 7, 8, 9. And 10, 11, 12. So, I love Naruto, the anime. Actually, oh, this is funny. I did not do this on purpose. But I am literally wearing my shirt with Kakashi's face on it right now. Super obsessed with the anime. So I was really excited to read the manga and see if it was similar, different, what have you. And I have to say, it is almost identical. So if you like the anime, chances are very good that you will like the manga, and vice versa. The anime is notoriously high in filler. I don't tend to, left to my own devices, I would watch the filler. I tend to watch the show with my husband, and he doesn't like watching the filler, so he skips it, and so perforce do I. If you are familiar with the story, so volume 1, 2, 3 introduces us to the characters and gets us partway through the Uzumaki Bridge, the Naruto Bridge story arc. So volume 4 finishes up that story arc and starts the, does it go straight to the Chunin exams? Yeah, okay, so finishes the bridge story arc, starts the Chunin exams. We stop about 1/3 of the way through the Forest of Death. And then apparently I did not write down. Let's see, 7, 8, 9 is all still Chunin exams. And 10, 11, 12. Still Chunin exams. Yeah, so volume 12 stops with Shikamaru's fight against what is her name? I don't remember. Anyway. Yeah, so still doing the Chunin exams. And yes, I'm loving it so far. I'm excited by how similar it is to the anime because it means that anytime I want to revisit the anime, I could, if I could remember what happens in each volume, I could just read the manga instead, and that takes significantly less time than watching the anime. Alrighty, so then I read A History of Hockey in Canada. challenge earlier, one of the prompts for it was a book with hockey in it. I know hockey romances are wildly popular right now. I did not want to read one. I don't read heterosexual romance. It's just not my thing. I tried finding a queer hockey romance. There is a comic that I used to read online that was about hockey, but I didn't think that the library would let me get away with that. So when I tried looking for like queer hockey romances, honestly none of them looked good. They looked like their spice levels were going to be higher than I'm comfortable with. So I decided to read A History of Hockey in Canada because a book about hockey definitely has hockey in it, and a nonfiction definitely does not have spicy, uncomfortable romance in it. It actually was much more interesting than I thought it was going to be, considering that I know absolutely nothing about hockey. I know that we have a hockey team where I live, and I know that they are doing well and are pretty popular, but yeah, I know nothing about hockey. Well, now I know quite a bit about hockey. And I did think the book was pretty interesting. It does a good job of including women's hockey and acknowledging the ways that Indigenous games influenced how hockey is played. It even has a chapter on BIPOC inclusion in hockey. Yeah, overall, much more interesting than I thought. Pretty well enjoyed the book. Alright, and then I read The Garden by Claire Beams. This is another book that I won through the Feminist Book Club. So The Garden is about, our main character has had several miscarriages. It takes place in the late 1940s in the UK. I think it's in the UK. It kind of gave a UK vibe. So our main character wants to have a baby. There's some really interesting exploration of her ambivalence towards motherhood. You know, she wants this baby because she knows that it will make her husband very, very happy, but sometimes she's less sure if she actually wants one. So that exploration was really interesting. Our main character is living on this country estate that is owned by a married couple of doctors, and those doctors are doing research into how estrogen, how hormone injections can help women who are struggling with multiple miscarriages. So this book has all the like claustrophobic gothic horror vibes that I wanted it to have. Unfortunately for me, the story itself didn't quite work. They find this garden, and the garden might be able to bring things back to life, but our main character might just be banana pants. I wanted there to be a connection between the doctor who owns this estate, because it's her family estate, and this garden that can bring things to life, and her obsession with helping these women have babies. And I just don't think that that was done anywhere near as well as it could have been. So that was kind of disappointing to me. But the vibes were great. I do love gothic horror. So I think I gave it 3 stars overall. because I enjoyed the way it was written. I enjoyed the characterization. I don't think we're supposed to like these characters, which is also kind of fun. Yeah, I was just a little disappointed in the end, is really what it came down to. Alright, and the last two books that I read in the month of May were both audiobooks. I did the Doomsday Book by Connie Willis, and oh my gosh, so this is a science fiction written in the early 1990s. Like, I think it was published in 1992, and it successfully predicts a pandemic and takes place during an epidemic where the big concerns are like running out of toilet paper. I'm convinced that Connie Willis was in fact a prophet. She could see the future. It's the only logical explanation for me. I loved this book. It was so compelling. Would I have found it as compelling pre-pandemic? Honestly, probably not. But here we are, and I did not want to stop listening. So the premise is that it's like 2054, and time travel exists and is used by historians to study the past. So we have like two primary point of view characters. One of them is a professor, the other one is a student, but not directly of that professor. So the professor studies like the 20th century. This student desperately wants to go back to medieval times, which is not allowed because it's considered too dangerous. So the school's headmaster goes on vacation, and the person who's like second in command decides to rush through so that he can send her back to the medieval ages when the headmaster isn't there to stop them. So our main character, the professor, is desperately trying to keep this student safe. The student is super eager to go. So we're splitting time between 2054 and the Middle Ages, medieval England. I do think that the medieval parts, the pacing wasn't quite there for me. It was a little slower paced than it needed to be. But still super fun. The contrast between the Black Death and this minor epidemic of flu in 2054 was really interesting. The allusions to pandemics and how they would have been handled was just all so spot on in retrospect. Really, really, really good. Highly enjoyed. And the last book that I read in May was A Tempest of Tea by Asa Faisal, I think, is how you would pronounce her name. Hafsa Faisal, yeah, I think. That one was a disappointing note to end the month on. I ended up giving it only 2 stars. The plot was interesting. It's essentially a heist story with vampires involved. The problem for me, there were 2 problems. One, the world building was inconsistent and not very good. It's relying too much on, it's taking place in a fictional version of the British Empire. It's got these great anti-colonization themes, but it's inconsistent in what time period we feel like we're in, what gender roles are and how they're enforced, stuff like that just makes it feel incomplete. And then my second gripe with it is that we have 3 point of view characters, and you cannot tell whose head you are in based on the writing style. There is no distinction between any of them. So to me, it didn't need to have 3 points of view because they were all explicitly told whose head you were in. So that is a problem for me. Also, the cliffhanger that it ends on is just